Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today's lesson is on the powers of 10, also known as exponents, 1-7, 1-8. I really love exponents, so I hope you do too. I think they're fun to work with. Our goal is that we're going to multiply whole numbers by powers of 10 or exponents. Okay, so our vocab is, what are these powers of 10? Well, here we just have a 10 listed. Here we have 10 times 1. Well, 10 times 1, the answer is 10. I want you to notice something about the zeros as I work with these. 10 times 10, we all know, is 100. Notice what I'm doing with these zeros. 10 times 10 times 100 equals 1,000. Now, you might want to pause right now the video and just look at what you're noticing about the zeros and see if you can catch on. Okay, so here we had 1 0 in our two factors, and our product, or our answer, had 1. Here our two factors had 2 zeros, and our product, or our answer, had 2. Here we had 1, 2, 3 zeros in our factors, and then our product had 3. That's going to really be helpful to know that throughout this lesson. Okay, the big new thing is the exponents. So it's this little number. It's supposed to be little. This isn't an accident. It's supposed to be smaller and in the right-hand corner. Okay, the large number is called the base number. I'm going to use the symbol for number, but this is called our base number. It's kind of nice that it's the big number, so I just think of it as the big number. Now in 5th grade, you're only going to work with a base number of 10. When you get to 6th grade, your base numbers are going to be different, but this year our base number is always going to be 10. Okay, what the base number tells you is it's the number you are multiplying. So it's the number you are multiplying. That's what the base number or big number tells you. Okay, the little number, that's actually called our exponent. Now what that number tells us is it tells us how many of the base numbers you have. Okay, so this means I'm going to be multiplying the number 10, and the exponent tells me how many of the bases I have. So because it's a 5, it tells me I'm going to have 5 tens. Okay, so let's actually kind of put some of these in place and see what this means. So here, there's a 10, and if you look close, the exponent's a 1. That means my base number is a 10. I'm going to be multiplying a 10, and the exponent 1 tells me I only have one of them. So I actually can't even really multiply when I just have one of them. Okay, we would read this as 10 to the first power. Okay, the next one, my base is still 10, but this time my exponent's 2. So I'm going to be multiplying tens, and I have 2 of them. So I have 10 times 10, which equals 100. And kind of pay attention to those zeros again. Notice the exponent was 2, and then I have 2 zeros in my answer. Now this one we read a little differently. We actually read this one as 10 squared. Now you learned about shapes last year. A square is a 2D or two-dimensional shape. So I always think of the 2 as a 2-dimensional shape, which is a square. Okay, our next one is 10 with a little exponent 3. So again, this means I'm multiplying tens, but the 3 means I'm going to multiply 3 of them. So think if you can guess what my answer is going to be. If I have 3 zeros in my factors, my answer is going to have 3 zeros as well. And I read this one as 10 cubed. Now before I write it, start thinking if you can guess why. Well, a square was a 2D object. A cube is a 3D object. Okay, now we go on to another one, 10 with an exponent 4. So again, I multiplying tens, but I have 4 of them. So how many zeros do you think is going to be in my answer? If you're thinking 4, you're absolutely right. Whoops, I forgot a comma up there. Let me go put it up. So my answer is 10,000. Now, we don't have any shapes that are 4-dimensional. So the way I read this is I read 10 to the 4th power. In fact, these are really the only shapes we have, so it's just these two that we get to read in a special way. Okay, 10 with the exponent 7, hopefully you figured out it's going to be 10 times 10. Oh, that's 2. I'm going to need 3. That's my 4th one. 5, 6, and 7. And hopefully you can guess how many zeros that answer is going to have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 10 to the 7th power, which is how I would read it, is equal to 10 million. Okay, those notes should really help you. Now, hopefully you saw the pattern so you don't have to solve them each time. When it was 10 squared, the answer had 2 zeros. When it's 10 cubed, the answer had 3 zeros. 10 to the 4th power, it had 4 zeros. I want you to still understand what it means, but this is a great shortcut to help you. Okay, so what are our steps going to be today? We only have 3. So first we're going to rewrite the equation without the exponent. In math, you're almost always going to get rid of your exponent right away. You cannot do math very easily with exponents. Our second step is I'm going to underline the non-zero factors. So any number that's not a 0, a 1, a 2, a 12, an 18, any number that's a non-zero, I'm going to underline the non-zero factors and then multiply them. And then underline the product. And remember from 4th grade, product's the answer. Okay, my step 3 is I'm going to count the zeros. I like to cross them off as I go so I don't forget some, and then add them to the product. Okay, so what does this really look like? I'm going to put my green pen down so you can set your pencil down as well. And let's see it. I hope you like this lesson as much as I do. I think these are really fun. Okay, my first problem looks like this. I'm going to put my steps so we can follow them. So I see 8 times 10 to the 4th power. Well, I first need to rewrite this equation, but I need to get rid of the exponent. Well, 10 to the 4th power is the same thing as 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or it's the same thing as 10,000, because I know 10 to the 4th power is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So that's what step 1 looks like. Step 2 is I'm going to underline my non-zero factors. So my factors are my numbers I'm multiplying. Well, that's not a 0. That's not a 0. Those are all zeros, so I'm not going to underline them. So I underlined my non-zero factors. Now I'm going to multiply them. 8 times 1. And then I'm going to underline the answer. Okay, step 3 is I'm going to count the zeros that are left, and add them to my product or my answer. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So my answer is 80,000. Now we might have been able to do this one without following these steps, but the more we practice the steps, the better prepared we'll be. Okay, our next one's a little bit more complicated. It has 3 factors, or 3 numbers I'm multiplying. But I'm going to follow my same steps. So first, I'm going to rewrite the equation without the exponent. So I need to get rid of this. Well, 10 cubed means 10 times 10 times 10, which also means I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. And if you don't know that, you could just refer up here and see what 10 cubed means. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2 is I'm going to underline the non-zero factors and multiply them. So that's not a 0, that's not a 0, that's not, neither of those are zeros, so those kind of go together. So I have 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 11 is 99. And I'm going to underline that. And then step 3 is I'm going to count my zeros, cross off as I go, and add them to the product. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I can add my comma. And that is my answer. So if you're feeling like, wow, that's easy, it kind of is once you understand it. Okay, let's try a couple together. All right, I'm changing pens, so grab your pencil. Okay, I'm going to leave my steps where I can see them, and hopefully you can use your steps as well. So our first problem says 12 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, so I'm going to write 12 times, and I need to rewrite it getting rid of that 10 to the 4th power. Well, 10 to the 4th power means 10 times 10, wait, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. 4 tens, or I can remember it's going to mean 4 zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, step 2 is I'm going to underline the non-zeros. So 12 times 1 is 12. And then step 3 is I'm going to add those zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is 120,000. Okay, next we have 8 times 10 cubed times 5. So I have 8 times, okay, if I have to get rid of this exponent, so 10 cubed means 10 times 10 times 10. Or it means the same as having 3 zeros, which is 1,000 times 5. Okay, step 2 is we're going to underline our non-zeros. 8 times 1 is 8, times 5 is 40. Now, I hope you're seeing why I'm underlining this, because sometimes people get these zeros confused. This 0 in 40 is part of this. But for step 3, I still need to add all these zeros. So step 3 is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And my answer then is 40,000. Okay, I hope you're feeling okay with that. If not, remember, we'll work on it tomorrow. You have 4 problems tonight, and then please rate yourself honestly as always. Have a nice night, ladies and gentlemen.